All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast, where we're starting off our team previews, actually. We're starting with the ACC. If you are enjoying our content so far, please make sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support. But we're going to dive right into Notre Dame. Cody, we're starting with you. We're going to talk about the offensive side of the ball to start out, maybe some strengths that you think this Notre Dame roster has currently.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the strength of this team is probably the roster retention. I think that's going to help them out a lot early in the season. And then also just the half-court creation of Marcus Burton. I mean, returning one of the best guards, one of the best scoring guards in the entire country is key. And it was big for Micah Shrewsberry to be able to keep him around. You know, he could have gone to a lot of different teams in the portal and, you know, decided to hang around for a great coach that both me and Marcus like. So Shrewsbury teams don't really run at all. I mean, they're fourth percentile in transition frequency. So having like a high level half court pick and roll operator like Burton is like pretty imperative for this offense. He's going to receive a touch on pretty much every single possession, has a sky high usage. I mean, it's like he's usually he usually has like a 33% usage rate. I think he did the last 2 years. So he's probably going to have that, maybe even more this coming year. But yeah, he's not the same. I kind of compared him to what Jalen Pickett was for the Penn State offense a couple of years ago when they were at their best. He's not the same level passer, but he's going to have that same level of usage. So he's going to be really massive for this offense, especially since the loss of Tay Davis is going to be so important. They didn't really do a great job in the portal of replacing him or what they did through the freshman class. So I think Burton's going to take on even more of an offensive load. And I think his scoring creation in a half court setting is really going to be fine. He's going to be able to help them out in that area.
Marcus, what do you think the offensive strengths are for Notre Dame?
I guess kind of just to piggyback on Cody a little bit. Like they run obviously everything through Burton. A lot of the load falls on him, and in particular, it's going to this year, which I think leads to one of their strengths. Like he's a great creator in the half court, but he also like takes care of the ball at a very high level given his usage rate. So I think like as long as he's healthy, he did miss like 7 or so games last year. As long as he's healthy, like the ball control of Notre Dame should be a strength. We'll talk about some weaknesses here in a second. But where he is kind of the primary guy that like his usage rate is going to be sky high. Like that is going to be a strength of theirs whenever he's on the court, is they should be able to take care of the ball. And like you said, Cody, like they're not going to get out and run. So it's going to be a really important strength to have if they want to stick around in some of these games against the top level opponents in the ACC.
Let's move on to weaknesses. Cody, what do you think, if there's any weaknesses in the Notre Dame offense?
Yeah, for how good Marcus Burton is, it's kind of the rest of the roster that's a little bit lacking. So I would say the help for Marcus Burton is probably a weakness. And I kind of mentioned like Tay Davis being a massive loss, as he was able to carry the scoring load when Burton missed those 7 or 8 games, and he could operate with him through the post like as a roll man, or he could attack as a driver from the top of the key. Like they're bringing back Braden Shrewsberry obviously, but he's more of an off-ball guy, more of an off-ball shooting weapon. He might need to slide into a little bit more of a creation role, which I don't really love. Like if Burton happens to go to the bench, which I don't really anticipate that happening all that often during games, he's going to have to slide into more of an on-ball creation role, which like I said, I don't really love that for him. But I do think the upside of some of these 4-star freshmen coming in, like Jalen Harrelson, and then Ryder Frost is more of a shooter, more of an off-ball shooter. But I do think Harrelson's going to be really important, and it's going to be a tough ask for him to come in right away and be that second creator for this offense, because like I said, like Carson Tout coming in as the 4-man, like he has a lot of limitations that I'll get into here in a few minutes. But yeah, Harrelson's going to be pretty important as like a downhill driver and creator, like for like their drive and kick sort of based offense, which I think we're going to see a lot more of that this season.
Marcus, what do you think about the weaknesses of the Fighting Irish? Maybe just a little bit more about their roster too.
Yeah. I think it's like I worry about their floor spacing quite a bit. To Cody's point about Tout being the four-man, he's a non-shooter. And really the only shooter, they lost a lot of shooting from last year. The only shooter that is going to play alongside him is Shrewsberry. Maybe like the freshman, Brady Kohler. He seems to be able to space the floor a little bit, but like Harrelson, if you watch any of his high school highlights, like some teams don't even really acknowledge, like they dare him to shoot it from there. Granted, part of it is because of the athlete and driver that he is, but at the same time, he doesn't appear to be overly comfortable shooting the ball. And like when he does shoot it, it's got like some funky spin on the three ball sometimes. So like I do have concerns about their floor spacing. I think there's a chance that at all times they might have three guys that have little to no interest in shooting a three, which I think is going to make life on Marcus Burton that much tougher. Like not to take away from his greatness, but like I think he's going to have games where he really struggles this year because there's not going to be a ton around him, like you said at the jump, Cody, for him to lean on for extra offense. Like I do like Harrelson, and I think by season's end he'll be able to provide more offense, especially like driving the ball and getting downhill to score at the rim. But I think like early in the year, especially, like Burton's going to have a lot to shoulder, and I'm not really sure what kind of help he's going to get. Like I think they're going to have to rely on the offensive glass a little bit. We didn't really touch on that as a strength, but I do think they have some offensive glass potential. It's like maybe like they have a few guys with a plus 10% offensive glass rate. So maybe that's there. And Harrelson's a really good athlete himself. So maybe he can chip in there and they can pick up some easy ones in that area. But I worry a little bit about the floor spacing in general. Like it's a Notre Dame team, like you said, Cody, that doesn't like to get out and run. And it's a team that really needs to probably be built to get out and run, play defense and get out and run, because they're going to struggle, I think, in the half court.
Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball, and we'll start with Cody here. Any strengths you see right off the bat?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's driven by the Shrewsberry scheme, but there is like a little bit of extra talent on this roster, a little bit of extra athleticism, like with Harrelson kind of frontlining that, and then guys like Sir Mohammed and Tout's like not a bad athlete. He's more of a physical presence at the four. So I do think they have some talent there, but the three main strengths that I listed were defensive rebounding, rim denial, and transition denial, which is like all a mainstay in the Shrewsberry system. The Shrewsberry teams have been top 100 in defensive rebound rate in all 4 years with him as a head coach. Their worst finish was 81st in the country. And then adding a guy like Carson Tout to the front court is an upgrade over Davis on the defensive end. I mean, he had a 32.1% defensive rebound rate at Northern Arizona last season compared to Tay Davis playing the same position at Notre Dame. He had a 13.4% defensive rebound rate. So you can kind of consider that a pretty big upgrade, plus the addition of Harrelson, like I mentioned, is an upgrade over Madalacco playing the three. So I definitely think they have a chance to be a top 25 to top 50 defensive rebound rate team this season. I guess like a slight issue with that would be, there isn't really a solidified backup behind Kevajai right now. So there's not really a great option to play the five to maintain this sort of rebound dominance. But I think Tout can kind of slide into the five and they can still be okay on the glass. And then for the rim denial, like Shrewsbury defense they always play in the gaps heavily to make sure they make up for their lack of rim protection. Like with Jai, he's not the greatest rim protector. Plus across the roster, I wouldn't consider it to be anywhere near above average. So the scheme kind of drives teams more towards the perimeter and just away from the rim in general. And like I said, the perimeter D could improve with Harrelson and and more Mohammed minutes. I think he only played like 13 minutes last season. I think he's probably going to be the first guy off the bench, so I could see him getting a few extra minutes this coming season. And just to the Notre Dame's rim defense they gave up a 70.7% field goal percentage last season at the rim, which was in the first percentile, but allowed just 25.6% of opponents' field goal attempts to come in that area, which was in the 90th percentile. So just goes to show that the scheme kind of drives that. And then for their transition denial, again, always been a point of emphasis under Shrewsberry, who likes to play a more methodical pace on both sides. They were in the 89th percentile in percentage of points allowed on fast break last year at Notre Dame, and at Penn State in 22-23. The Shrewsberry defense was in the 99th percentile in the same area. So, and yeah, like I said, like to your point about the offensive rebounding potentially being a strength, like the roster, like, yeah, it looks good from an offensive rebounding perspective, but the fact that they try to deny transition at such a high level, they're really not going to crash the glass as often, making them probably more like middle of the pack in the entire country. It's just, I think they can naturally rebound with two guys, but they're not going to send five guys at the glass like some teams do, like a Buzz Williams Texas A&M team. Like, it's just not going to be that way. So they're going to value their transition denial for the better for this roster that still kind of lacks athleticism across the board.
Marcus, let's hear your strengths on the defensive side, and then we'll move on to weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, the main one for me, I think that they got this year is more versatility. I think Harrelson provides a lot of versatility. I think Tout provides versatility. Like he showed more athleticism than I remembered or thought he had. And then, like to Cody's point about Muhammad, maybe he can play a little bit more, provide some versatility there. And then like Brady Kohler, I don't really like, he's a longer athlete, showed the ability to kind of disrupt some shots, but also good enough athlete, I think, to switch on to some wing players. Like, he's listed at 6'9", but I think he has the ability to stay in front of the ball a little bit and also disrupt some shots with length. So I think he has some versatility that could come into play. Now, I think the big thing with Kohler is he going to be able to withstand like the physicality of college basketball right away? Because if you look, like, he's a very thin-framed, wiry kind of player. So I'm not sure if he's going to be ready like right away to make a big impact or be able to withstand heavier minutes. But I do like his like long-standing versatility, maybe by season's end.
Let's flip to the weaknesses. Cody, we'll start off with you and what you don't like about this Notre Dame defense.
Yeah. I mean, I do like that Shrewsberry, can maintain a high floor for this defense overall for like the reasons I listed before, just controlling the controllables. That's something that he's always done. But with that just because the talent's kind of lacking across the roster, I would say that they don't really have a really high ceiling due to the lack of talent and athleticism. Like guys like Marcus Burton and Shrewsberry have proven to be pretty below average on ball defenders throughout their career. Although, Burton can tap into like his turnover forcing upside. He's had like over a 3% steal rate in both seasons in college basketball. So those two guys aren't going to defend at a high level, just putting a little bit more pressure on the front line defense. And like Kepa Jai has been here, his entire career, and they've kind of had to mask his deficiencies. Like that's I think part of the reason why they play such a heavy rim denial defense is because his sort of lacking rim protection. I mean, he moves like fairly well in space and like fits this scheme well. Like Shrewsberry makes sure that he fits in, but he's just kind of another reason why they don't really have the ceiling that they really should have with some of the athletes that they have on the perimeter. So I just think not a super high ceiling with this group, just due to the lack of athleticism.
Marcus, let's hear what you think.
I think like Cody kind of started to get at it, but I think the backcourt defenders just aren't that good. Like, I think Shrewsberry to me is really just like a spot up catch and shoot guy, a little bit of movement shooting, but like he's not a guy that I really want to be guarding like the other team's second best perimeter option. or second best guard. Like I worry a lot about that. I think Burton, you know, to Cody's point, he can force some steals, but I do think that sometimes he gambles a little bit too much, and gets himself in trouble that way. Which I just worry about the backcourt in general, just especially against the top teams with the best guards in the ACC. I don't really think that they're going to be able to hold up against them.
All right, my next question is, it could be two players, it could be the same player if you're really, not finding anyone else. But what's the Notre Dame's X factor, and what's their MVP? Who's their MVP? Let's do both. Cody, we'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I think the MVP is pretty obviously Marcus Burton. I mean, he averaged 21 points a game last year, 3 assists, and he's arguably going to have more responsibility in a half-court setting. So I think he's pretty easily the MVP. I would say the X factor is probably Jalen Harrelson, potentially being the number 2 option on this offense. Maybe getting this team out in a little bit more of a transition game, and maybe his on-ball creation takes more of a, or is more well-developed than we kind of perceive it going into the year. But I do think he's going to be key in this team potentially getting to having a little bit of a ceiling.
Marcus, what do you think? MVP and X factor?
I have the same guys. I mean, I think honestly, Notre Dame's one of those teams that it's a little bit more obvious who these two guys are. Like for me, it was pretty easy to pick Harrelson as the X factor because like it's probably when at the time of commitment, he was a 5-star. I think he was like the 10th rated recruit at commitment, and that was like the highest rated recruit that Notre Dame had ever gotten, and ended up being a 4-star. But I think like just the upside is there, and for a team that really only has Burton, they're going to ask him to probably do a lot more than some other teams, if he'd gone there, might have asked him to do. So I think like it naturally makes him the X factor if he can produce right away. And then to your point, right, like Burton he's just that guy for this team, right? He's going to average 20 to 25 and really put up big numbers. So there's really nowhere else to go for me there.
Before we wrap things up, let's hear it for a ceiling and a floor in the ACC for you, Cody.
Yeah, it feels like middle of the pack, and it feels like it's kind of firm. Like you really know what you're getting with Shrewsberry teams every single year, scheme-wise, and I guess right now talent-wise, just because they retained a lot of their roster. So, I mean, they could have a lot of success early in the year just because there's so much turnover throughout this conference and throughout the entire nation. So I could see them kind of emerging as one of the better teams in this league early on in the season. Maybe as teams start to figure it out, they start to kind of dip just because of, the athleticism and talent's lacking, like we've mentioned a few times. But yeah, I'll say maybe the ceiling is 6th or 7th and the floor is somewhere like 11th or 12th in the league. I don't see this team making the tournament just because I don't really think they necessarily did enough in the portal. Like we know, like I've said, like we know what this team is, we know what they've been, and they haven't been a tournament team right now. So we're just gonna have to see what the 4-star freshmen bring to the table, and maybe they can help them get to their first tournament in the Shrewsberry era.
Marcus, ceiling, floor, final thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I think also like middle of the pack. I think the best they could probably do is like 6th in the ACC, and then I don't know, like 10th. I feel like they're kind of firmly in that middle of the pack. Like they have one of the better players, one of the best guards in the league. So I think that kind of obviously raises their floor a little bit. I really like Micah Shrewsberry, as Cody alluded to earlier. But I don't really think they make the tournament. Unfortunately, like as much as I would like to say that Micah Shrewsberry stock buyers are going to be able to cash in their chips this year, like it's not. I don't think this is the year, unfortunately. But I think it's coming. I do think it's coming, Notre Dame fans, like soon. But one other thing, like bold prediction, I have a thought about Marcus Burton, and I actually think we may see a reduction in points per game because of what's around him. I think like he's gonna, a lot more is gonna be on his plate, but I think that is also going to lead to, like, obviously defenses were already gonna pay big attention to him anyway, but I think he's gonna just get bombarded by other teams' defenses trying to take him away and make others beat them. So I don't think it's gonna be like anything crazy, like a big discrepancy, but I think he takes a step back in the scoring column, maybe more assists.
Cody, do you agree with that bold take before we sign off?
Funny thing is, I basically had the exact opposite opinion. I didn't really have like a crazy bold prediction. I'm not sure if I actually believe this, but I said Marcus Burton's going to lead the nation in scoring. He averaged 21.3 last year, and he's going to have more usage. It wasn't like I had a really rough time coming up with something bold about this team, just because it's just a high floor team that we know what we're getting. I always know what I'm getting with the Shrewsberry team. It's going to be really hard for him to lead the nation in scoring with such a slow paced system. They never get out and run. But the fact that he averaged 21 in the system with Tay Davis by his side makes me believe that maybe he can get to 23. I think 23 led the nation last year, right? 23.5 with Eric Dixon? I think he led the country. I think maybe Burton can get to that number, and I'm not like crazy about this take, but I just something to note.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see for sure. All right, we're going to wrap things up here. As always, thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.